Mike and Nate. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good, thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us. You're from Rockmanor Games, and you are showing your very exciting games that is currently on Kickstarter.
Yes, it is. It's funded, so we got past the hard part. It's just the waiting out part now and seeing where we end up part.
It's doing well at the
Yeah.
moment. Well, the time we filmed this, we have 15 days left.
Oh yeah. About 2 weeks.
Backers,
Yeah.
so that's good.
Yeah, we're doing fine. Yeah.
Awesome. So, the few and cursed. I've got my little cheat sheet because I have questions to ask you.
Okay.
Tell me about yourself. Your company you produced. This is not your first Kickstarter.
No, this is. I think this is like our 6th Kickstarter or something. Yep. Our first game was Brass Empire.
Yep.
Our second game is Maximum Apocalypse.
Yep.
Our third game was Set a Watch. So this is our 4th new game, although
Yep.
we have a couple expansions for some of our earlier ones.
Yep.
So this is our 4th new game
Yep.
or new IP.
Yep.
We're delving back into the competitive side of things and back
Yep.
into deck building.
Yep.
But it's very different.
Yep.
We've tried to simplify a lot of the deck building mechanics and
Yep.
try to do something innovative with it.
Yep.
And then we've tried to sort of sculpt an adventure, sort of an action adventure, sort of based on the comics around those core mechanics. So the game's all about building your deck and customizing your character. So you have these boards where you customize your character. You have items you can equip that that also customize your character, and then you're also acquiring cards to your deck that are going to customize your character. And I did the insane thing of making different starting decks for each player. So most deck builders, as you know, you have the same 10 cards, all 4 players that are playing.
Not this one.
Not this one. They're completely asymmetrical.
Asymmetrical is really hot right now.
So that was an extra challenge I threw myself to balance the game. But we've been playing this a long time, and the point spreads are where we want to see them, and we're really happy with where everything is.
And the theme is as well, it's also based on these comic books.
Correct. Yeah, it's based on an independent comic book.
Yeah.
Here we'll show you one here. It's based on the independent comic series, The Few and the Cursed. It's a series of comic books focusing on the heroine, the redhead. She is the heroine of the story. We don't know her name. She's just known as Red or the Redhead. And she is a curse chaser. So the setting of the story is that it takes place in the Pacific Ocean. As you can see, this is the San Andreas Fault. So the Pacific Ocean evaporated, and most of the water in the entire Earth evaporated. It's an alternate history. And the supernatural became real. So it was a supernatural phenomenon. Humans have started relying on the dark arts to survive. And when you delve too deeply into the dark arts, sometimes you become evil and somewhat monstrous. So the comic book miniseries follows this folklore legend of crows, like man-sized crows, who are snatching children and taking them away. So the redhead is riding into town to get to the bottom of why these children are being snatched and put an end to it. So obviously we have crows in the game. We have the crow enemy over here. They're always hanging out. You can always kill them. They're one of the generic enemies you can always fight. And we've got crow miniatures and stuff that can pop up on the board and start making their way towards town.
So this is competitive.
Yes, it's competitive.
Nice.
We do have some solo modes, and we're working on some other things within the same system. But yeah, it's competitive. It's not particularly antagonistic. We're not. There's not a lot of take that. But we are competing to be the most renowned curse chaser in the surrounding area. So obviously, if I'm the redhead, I want to be the one to defeat the crows because I want to be the heroine of the story. Whereas if you're playing as Jebediah or Maecenas, you want to be the hero as well. Or at least the most infamous. Your motivations may not be as altruistic as the redheads.
And that's how you win.
Correct. Yeah. So it's sort of it's actually probably our most Euro game, even though it's heavily themed, just with the way point tracking is. Because we are seeing scores within a few points of each other. Basically, on your turn, you play through a few phases. I'll go through a couple of things because I think it's interesting. So it's a deck builder, but you'll notice there's no market of cards to buy from. So every turn, you're going to improvise from what we call the upgrade deck. And you're going to draw 2 cards, and everyone will do this sort of in order, sort of simultaneously, so it keeps things moving. And you'll pick one of these cards to add to your hand. And you'll be looking at your whole hand, thinking, what do I want to do for my action this turn? So you'll be trying to grab a card that helps you complete the action you want to do. And instead of adding this to your discard pile like you do in most deck builders, you add it right to your hand, so you can use it immediately.
Yep.
So it's immediately impacting your turn.
Yeah.
After, if we're out adventuring, after we improvise and get our hand of cards, the game throws a wrench in the works. Because based on where you're located, you will draw either a cursed encounter, which is sort of the big set piece encounters with art and multiple choices. You can see that there's 3 choices on this card. And based on what you have in your hand, there's usually optimal choices, but you have to spend cards to get the optimal choices.
Yep.
And there's always a 3rd choice, which is sometimes bad, like getting ambushed and stabbed by a crow or something, and losing health.
Yep.
So it's your choice whether or not you want to sacrifice cards that you need to complete your action to get other effects.
Yep.
And there's also normal encounters, which are just our way of sort of telling an emergent story throughout the game based on your location. So, you know, if I'm Jebediah and I'm in the desert here, you may read like my card to me and say, a merchant appears ahead in the clearing. He greets you and sets out his wares for sale. You may take shopping actions as if you were in town. So in this desert, I've run across a merchant who was on his way to the town, and I can buy things like I'm in San Andreas, even though I may be over
Thematic.
here. Yeah. So by going through these cards, you know, and obviously I only read one piece of this thing, but these other events, depending on where you are, will all trigger a different phase, and it sort of tells a story as you're playing an emergent story.
And these are the event decks?
Yeah, that's the encounter deck, yeah.
Okay, so they're quite replayable then?
Yeah, because depending on how... People are like, oh, there's only 28... I don't even know how many cards are in here, actually. But however many cards these are, there's like 30, 20-ish, 30 cards. People are like, you only have 20 events. Well, you have to times that by 3. It's something like 82 events.
Okay.
Because I had to write all this text, and it was not easy to do.
That's right, yeah.
And then I had to balance it all, which is even worse.
Yeah. And obviously this is a prototype copy.
Correct.
Kickstarter.
Yeah. So like this is like a paper board instead of a real board. All this stuff will be finished. These are printed with shapeways, so obviously they won't be clear.
Yeah.
So sorry, the miniatures don't appear as well on camera.
That's pretty cool.
They're still cool. They're still actually pretty highly detailed.
Actually, yeah.
It's just I've been told that they don't appear on camera as detailed as they really are because they're sort of translucent. So sorry about that, but that's how prototypes go.
Well, there are more detailed photos on your Kickstarter
Yes, there are.
Which we'll put underneath this video.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, there's also like we've got something spinning around, so you can see them from all different angles and stuff too.
Awesome. Yeah.
So after you do your encounter phase, the next phase is the action phase. So this is sort of, it's not worker placement, but it sort of is because you're spending your movement and resources to get to a certain point, and you only can do one action. So it's sort of like placing one worker and doing your one thing. Okay. And that one thing you do is how you're going to gain points. Oh. So there's always hard decisions to make. You know, are you going to go after these big bounties for big points? In the corners of the game, we put these really powerful artifacts. Sorry, these cards, some of the art's not done.
That's okay.
It's actually colored and finished now, but when I printed this, it wasn't. Those are in the corners, and when you visit them, you can pick them up, and you add these cards directly to your deck. So it's your action.
As well.
Yeah, but you can get a really powerful. I mean, the most powerful cards in the game are these artifacts. You're given secret jobs in the game, so this may give you some direction when you start. You know, you may have a job that says you need to camp in the canyons. You need to work on collecting bullets to become a gunslinger. So you may be working towards that stuff while I'm working towards different secret objectives. And you can do those things to score points. And then also you can journey anywhere, and as your action decide to have additional encounters and additional storytelling, which can potentially open you up to choices that gain you grit. So it's truly an adventure where you're building your character however you want, and you know, you're competing against other people, going after the same bounties. Obviously, if you're the first to get this coward in the desert, you're going to capture that card, and there's going to be a new card that flips. And we'll go after different stuff.
There's a lot of variability because you start with different deck, each player, and then this is different player boards.
Yeah, and they all have different starting stats, and money. So
I'm a fan of deck building.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if you've played any of other games, but I would say, me personally, I'm very invested into not only variability, but like replayability as far as like as far as having modular pieces to the game and making the characters truly feel different. You know, if you've played Maximum Apocalypse, you know that when you play as the hunter, it feels completely different than when you play as the fireman. And I wanted the same experience when you're playing a character in this game, even though you're not working together necessarily.
So game mechanics, the basic game mechanics would be worker placement, deck building.
There's some drafting, obviously.
The drafting as well, yeah.
Character building, sort of, I guess, like role playing a bit. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, some people will play this game and they will just read their card and pick their thing. And I've seen people play this game where players are reading the story to one another and making them decide. So it's however much you want to get into it. I'm more of a game guy where it's like, let's just do our thing and like try to win. Yeah. But I know. It's so much fun when you demo games and you see people appreciate different aspects of what you've designed and made. And I appreciate that people get into the theme of the game because theme for me is very important, and making sure that theme and the feeling of what the comics are comes through in the game is important. It's pretty important to me.
Also beautiful artwork I can see here. This is prototype, but these art's almost final.
Yeah, I think a couple of these character cards are probably not final, but all the bounties are certainly final. Yeah. And a lot of these upgrade cards are final. This is one of my favorites. I just happened to turn to it. Oh. Wicked World with the redhead.
That looks really good.
It's really cool because you can see in the back her hair is flowing into. Each character has a curse state. So one of the things we didn't cover mechanically is that as you play the game, your curse is going to increase on your board. Yeah. Because it's a supernatural evil place, and when you cross this threshold, you become cursed, and your character transforms into its cursed state. Oh! So the redhead, you can see this card sort of is a symbol to how she's this Grim Reaper. Yep. She becomes sort of a Grim Reaper, and that's why I think that card's so cool, because it sort of gives you a hint of her hair flowing into the other thing.
Does it make the character more powerful?
So it depends. Each character is different. Oh. So like Annabelle is one of the best examples. Yeah. If you look on her board, her curse threshold is very high. So it's very hard for her to get cursed. Yep. And she has very low health. So when you get cursed, you take more damage. So she's really playing this risk of dying. And when you die, you're not out of the game. You're just critically wounded and you lose victory points, but she becomes incredibly powerful. She actually becomes a crow. Wow. So she becomes incredibly powerful when she transforms, and her weapon proficiency greatly increases, but she's so weak that when she becomes cursed, she becomes very fragile. So playing that, there's a lot of push your luck with the curse mechanics, and each character feels different in that way. I would say for the most part, you don't want to be cursed, especially if you're new to the game and you haven't played it before. They all have penalties associated with being cursed. Yeah. But the redhead is one of the rare ones where she becomes less mobile, but she becomes even more potent at killing, which is sort of her specialty because she's like the Grim Reaper, the Grim Reaper skeleton chick. So she becomes even less mobile, trudging around the desert, but makes it really hard for her to get to the powerful bounties. Yep. But if she can get there, she packs a punch.
Yeah. Okay. That seems like all the characters are quite balanced. Like some do this, some do that, which is making it even more
I mean, for people out there who are interested in getting the game, if you're playing, I think the redhead and Jebediah are sort of the easier characters to play. He's sort of the jack of all trades. She's good at fighting. Macenas has very weak stats to start, but he starts with a ton of money. He's like the money guy from the shadows. So he's all about customizing. He gives you a lot of flexibility in how you want to play because he's got money that he can use as a resource to change his character. Yep. And then Annabelle is a very agile character that can move around very adeptly, but she lacks attack unless you really push that curse up to transform. And then you're up against the health problem.
I wonder if there's even like semi-cooperative or team versus team mode that you.
I am working on it. So I don't want to promise anything, but I know this video will be out later. And I can tell you that while I'm at Origins here, I have already play tested a cooperative mode at least once. Oh. And it was working pretty well. I was pretty happy with it. Yeah. So I want to make sure I have some of the numbers right. Yeah. But the core system and idea certainly was working. I actually liked it better than some of the solo modes I've tested in more depth. So I'm hoping to test that more while we're here.
So we'll
to get some feedback on it. So once I know it works for sure, and I feel like I can develop it in a timely fashion without delaying the game, I'll definitely announce it. But it's looking very good.
That's good.
So that's a sneak peek. That's a sneak peek at probably what will happen because it's something I thought we had an 8-hour drive to Origins, and it's something I talked with a designer friend we were driving together with about these things I was thinking about and if I could get it to work. And then we got here and we tried it and it was working really well.
Oh, that's
and I was like, it's funny sometimes how when you think about something and talk it out, if you put enough thought into it, it's surprising sometimes how quickly stuff can work, you know. Then other times you put it on the table and it's like, this is completely broken. We got to throw this in the trash.
Do you have to drive far to get here?
Yeah, it should have taken us 7 hours, but it took us probably closer to 8.5 because we hit traffic in Pittsburgh.
Of course.
We hit it at a bad time, yeah.
So 8 hours worth of talk about cooperative mode of the game leads to something good.
Yeah, it did lead to something good, yeah. I hopefully at least. I hope people like it, yeah.
Yeah, I like competitive. I also like cooperative mode and semi-cooperative or even like team versus team or something like that. Like something in between is good. Yeah. But yeah, I can't really think of a game that's quite like it, I don't think. There's deck building, but it's just like, you know, these days you want just more than deck building. You want deck building combined with something else, which is good because there's these adventure things and the role play things, and then there's the Euro thing and where you have.
Yeah, I'm sure people have seen elements of the game in other games, but I think I've never seen something put together this way, obviously, or I wouldn't have done it. Sort of one last thing about the game, which we haven't talked about, is that one of the ways the game ends is we have these monster miniatures. Ooh. Who represent sort of the big cursed bad guys. So when you get to the bottom of these decks, you'll have monsters that pop up, and they start in each of these unique corners, and they sort of represent a timer against the game. So they'll start moving towards the city, and if they make their way into the city, that's one of the game end triggers. If players are able to kill 3 of them, that also is an end game trigger. But the progression of always going through these bounties and these monsters coming out, so you see these cool miniatures, is a really important thing to us and one of the cooler aspects. And if they move into you, they deal damage to you, so you can lose victory points and get knocked out and dragged back to the town. So
so victory points, the most victory points win?
The most victory points wins at the end of the game, and there's sort of a lot of different paths to victory and a lot of different ways the game can end. So. I'd say
good game.
Yeah, I'd say the game ends typically takes 15 to 20 minutes per player, but obviously there are things you can do to make the game play faster depending on your group. If you think you're in the lead, you obviously want to end the game as fast as you can. And there are things that other players can do to slow you down, and there are things that there's a lot of different paths to victory. So even if you think you're in the lead, there's some scoring mechanics where, especially with the jobs and the secret jobs you have, where you can. I've seen someone. I was playing with some of my game designer friends in Philly who have played the game a couple times before, and I was in the lead, and I sort of pushed to end the game, and then one of my designer friends had 15 points in jobs that he secretly scored at the end of the game. He's like, I had 15 points in jobs, and I'm like, holy moly, and he jumped ahead of me by like 6 or 8 points at the end there. So
you never know.
Yeah, you're never sure because not all the points are directly on the track. It gives you a general idea of who's in the lead, but there's a few things where you got to sort of pay attention. You never know what people have exactly.
Kind of like prevent from king making as well.
Yeah, there's definitely a prevention for king making.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's really good. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So the date of the Kickstarter end?
The end of the Kickstarter is June 27th. So we're recording this on Wednesday, so it's like in 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks, 15 days. But it's right before the July 4th holiday, basically. So if you've gotten to July 4th and you're watching this, sorry you missed it. Check the late pledge. Check the pledge manager, and maybe you can order it. If you're before that, please come in and back the game. Help us unlock some amazing stretch goals. We've got a lot of cool things planned for the game, and we'd love to include them for backers. So
very good. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
No problems at all.